Hello, we are back.
We made it, everybody. Here we are with a Democrat and a Republican walk into a bar here at Ollie's Pub and Records in Cape Coral. The pub is open, so we would love to have you come down here and have a drink with us. Otherwise, hope that you are tuning in to us live on Facebook and YouTube.
Yes, good to be back. It's been, I think, about 3 weeks, and we just had a brief 30-minute catch-up episode for a bunch of the stories that we've been missing. How have you been? What's been going on in your life, Cindy?
Really, it's the end of the school year with the kids. So it's just like chaos. And I think I've spent every Thursday for the last month at a performance for my daughter.
Oh, I do know, because one of the ones we missed, I know, was part of it was because Evie was doing Girl Scout Woman of Distinction, or
yeah, my oldest daughter was a Girl Scout Woman of Distinction, and they had a really cute ceremony up at Charlotte Harbor, up in Punta Gorda.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So because it was for all the council, like the whole area, so
the whole region.
Yeah, okay. It was a big deal, and really proud of the work that she's done. And Girl Scouts is a great organization.
It really is. It teaches a lot of character. And just a wonderful, teaches about, business sense too, economic experience, very pro-capitalism.
Entrepreneurship.
Very entrepreneurial.
And my daughter got her My Faith, My Promise a patch too.
What is that?
Well, because it is a Christian-based organization.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Girl Scouts does make it so it's open to all types of different girls, but they have you can choose to do some of the faith and religion-based ones. And so they were doing a service-based project with a local church. So she got her My Faith, My Promise.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. So it's a great organization. Shout out to our Gulf Coast Girl Scouts. And we've been preparing because my daughter is also going hiking in Maine. My God. For a camp for like almost 2 weeks.
Oh, I remember I was in middle school with when me and my brother did our first sleepaway camp. It was a big deal. And it's the only one I've ever done, actually. I never really was never really fit for going away. But we went up to North Carolina in the woods. Very beautiful. It was my first time zip lining.
Oh, wow.
But it was also at that time the third Harry Potter book had just come out. So while all the kids were out there playing, I was at the cabin all day reading a book, and everyone just thought I was such a nerd and had no real understanding of why am I not out there having fun with everyone else. It was but I look back at it and it was very enjoyable. What a great place to, read a good book in the middle of the woods at a cabin. I mean, I'm sorry. I think I made the right decision on that one.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway, I'm a big, supporter of all these different types of programs. And let me get these. Let me make sure I got the comments up here. I always forget. But yeah, so big supporter. My kids have been a benefit. I know kids around the country benefit from these different types of youth programs, and that's why I've been a big supporter of them for my career. So, but I am Dr. Cindy Banier. I am your Democrat host for this show.
And I, of course, am Sean Hartman. I am your Republican host.
So what are we diving into first, Sean?
Ooh, well,
a few things.
Well, I think we should do with the quicker thing first, which I think would be the debt ceiling, just because we've averted the crisis, it looks like, or at least averted the crisis until 2025.
We've averted the crisis that the Republicans manufactured. I agree.
Yes. Okay. There we go. So I'm very glad that we were able to, and Joe Biden and the Republicans were able to come up with this deal, and we were able to avert this. We had this discussion, of course, last week, but I think we're both in agreement in the sense that we need to have these budget conversations now, and we need to, not wait until the last minute.
Right. Have the budget conversations during budget time. And that negotiation, I would like to see, my lesson is, that negotiation is possible. I do want to give props to Joe Biden, even though he said he wasn't going to negotiate. He did go in and negotiate. Both him and McCarthy and their teams negotiated in good faith. Yeah. They came out with a deal that nobody liked, the ugly baby. I've heard people refer to it. But that's actually means that they went and did their job, which was come up with a plan where everybody gets a little something and they can walk away with a win. And I would like to see more of that. I know that in this era of hyper-partisan politics, that's difficult.
It very much is, and I'm very curious to see if there's going to be that much backlash against Kevin McCarthy, because remember, we have the one vote rule, and there has been one congressman,
Chip Roy?
No, not Chip Roy. Apparently, it was I think it was Bacon, but I'm not 100% sure. It was it's one of the freshmen. They said that they were considering it, but I don't know if it's going to go through or if it'll.
I mean, he brought 2/3 of his caucus to vote, which was his agreement, and I don't think that's gonna be a good political move. But of course, the Freedom Caucus is going to do what they want to do, and they are going to make their strategy based on what they feel is important for their brand of politics.
And look, the reality is, even with the Freedom Caucus, what the Freedom Caucus really needs to understand is that this is the reality of divided government. He have to come up with something that can pass a conservative House, a relatively centrist Senate, and a liberal president. So it needs to, basically Venn diagram what can all three agree on.
Right.
Because otherwise nothing will pass, and then nothing will get done. And
that's dysfunction.
And that's dysfunction.
We don't
and I know that there's a lot of Republicans who like that idea because they think that government is that bad that we should just shut it down. But I don't take that view, even though I do believe that we need to reduce the size and scope of government. I don't think we do that by completely destroying government. Right. We need to still have good government, especially where that, especially in those areas where they're constitutionally required to have a role in. I definitely believe in a strong government in those areas.
Yeah. I mean, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think is the way that I like to look at it. Is like you don't want to just say, hey, we're mad at the whole thing, so burn it down. But unfortunately, sometimes, and this is, in my opinion, part and parcel of the gerrymandering and things that we've seen, a lot of congressional representatives are in very safe districts. Yeah. I think I had heard that less than like a couple dozen districts across the country are truly competitive. And everything else is, packed districts, cracked and packed, depending on the state. And so what that does is ultimately makes partisan politics more divided. Yeah, and because
at that point you're only in like a district like ours, right? Yeah. Where it's even been gerrymandered further recently with Dunbar being carved out of the district, right? So these type of situations, it ends up with the entire race ends up being either a Republican race or a Democrat race, and so you're trying to appeal to the conservatives or to the progressives, and you don't care about anyone else, and that's what really creates those dividing lines, because the Republican base, and I would say even the Democratic base, they don't want to work with the other side. They want to have their wins and fight for their wins and get those wins.
And they don't have to work with the other side. That's the point.
Yeah, that's
in a district. So in a district like ours, we're Republican plus 12 or 13 right now.
Byron's going to be rewarded for being against this.
Exactly. That's the whole point, because he can play to the base on this. And you look at another district, Debbie Wasserman Schultz on the east side of Florida, and her district is like a Democrat, like plus 35 or something, because it's packed, right? And so she doesn't have to compromise at all with Republicans at all. Like there's nothing, all she has to do is be talking to her Democratic base. And it's like that all across the country. And so that's part of what enables this dysfunction in Congress.
It really does. And I definitely agree with you there that we need, I know you fought for this last election cycle, gerrymandering reform. And it's definitely even at the local level. It happens at the local level as well. But we need to not look at political reasoning when it comes to districts, and it's very wrong for politicians to choose their voters. Voters need to choose who represent them. That's how it should go.
And that's one of the reasons I was a proponent of the election reform bill that included a mandate in there to make districts more competitive. That was part of what was in that bill as well. And that would make it better for voters. You would actually have a choice, between in the primaries and also in the general election. Yeah, we definitely need that. Speaking of primaries, the Republican presidential primaries are starting to heat up. We are going to have 3 new people come into the race this week. Mike Pence will be announcing on June 6th, I believe. Chris Christie is going to make another run for it on June 7th. And then the third one, and I had to look this guy up, is Doug Burgum. He is the governor of North Dakota. All right. He is a 2-term governor of North Dakota.
And before that was like a software executive. So he worked with like
he's a billionaire,
yes,
from what I understand.
Wealthy individual. I don't know why he's running. My thinking is either A, he
could be fun.
Thinks it could be fun. Maybe
profile.
Raise profile, raise the attention of North Dakota, because whoever pays attention to North Dakota. No one does, unfortunately. South Dakota is the one with the Mount Rushmore, so no one cares about North Dakota. They all go to South Dakota.
They just got to border us from Canada.
They just need to fuse. They just need to fuse North Dakota, and we have too many Dakotas. One Dakota is enough.
And too few Dakotans.
Exactly.
I'd actually be for that, because then you'd only get 2 senators.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's
with less people than the state of New York.
Exactly. But anyway, the point is, he's probably running for that. I also think possibly his connections with tech companies may be another reason why. That maybe tech executives are like, maybe we need to put a guy in there, and he's like, okay, I'll do it. But again,
I think he's going to be like the Republican Andrew Yang.
I don't know. I have no idea what he's even planning. Like, what's
his angle?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is very random. I think all of us really just found out last week. There's going to be about a dozen people now running. There's a few others like Chris Sununu and Glenn Youngkin who are apparently thinking about it. I would like them to stop thinking about it, because we have enough. We have enough people in this race, and I think some of the current people need to drop out. But it's I don't know why they're all running. I don't know if you have any insight as to why we have like a dozen people running against Trump.
Well, I know that there's Trump.
Yeah, there's Trump. There's Trump. He's like, it's really, I mean, this race is going to be defined with Trump and not Trump. That's really where the definition comes in. I think,
yes. And so I understand that Chris Christie is going to be, his platform is like returning civility to the Republican Party. Okay. This is what I've heard. Okay. I don't know. And then
that's that from Chris Christie. That is like,
angle.
Does no one not, how come anyone, that was like how he got his start. He was like the bully. He bullied teachers unions. He bullied pensioners. He bullied all these different people. Yeah. He was the bully. That's what the whole Bridgegate was. It was because he was a bully. Like, and he's coming at us on the civility angle.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous. I'm sorry. Yeah, I like Chris Christie. I actually genuinely have always been a fan of Chris Christie, but that is stupid if that's his angle.
So that's his angle. I guess Mike Pence is going to be.
Mike Pence would be better on the civility side. Mike Pence, here's what I think Mike Pence's angle is. So here's what I think Mike Pence is going to be. Because I had a chance to watch, Joni Ernst has what's known as a roast and ride in Iowa. And so a bunch of the candidates spoke, including Mike Pence. And his basic angle when he was speaking was, I was in the Trump administration, and he's running on Trump's record. So that's what I'm finding. That's what I think his angle is he's trying to run on Trump's record while not being Trump. Okay. And that's what I always thought, if he was going to run, that's where I thought his biggest strength was, because he could basically run on that record without running with the baggage of Trump, even though, being, I don't know. But anyway,
I don't know.
I think that's where he's trying to get at. He's trying to be the
boring version of Trump.
The boring version of Trump, which I don't think he realizes is not going to work, because everyone who likes Trump hates him. They hate him because they think he's the reason why.
And I don't know, honestly, I don't know if Trump's record overall is strong enough to run on. I mean, I don't know what kind of policy platforms he's going to pull out. Well, no. Because essentially the last, year and change was COVID.
Well, the year and change is COVID, but before COVID, we did have a very strong economy. They are going to run. He's probably going to run on the border wall. He can probably run, if he was smart, on the foreign policy stuff. I still think that
brinkmanship and
not the brinkmanship. No, he did. Abraham Accords is a very big.
How's that going?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, it was a nothing burger. That's why. Also, because other than that, Trump's foreign policy was brinkmanship. It was, trade policy.
Yeah, trade
now,
wars
here's
with China,
the thing.
That was a problem. That's true.
It was a problem, but most of that stuff Biden kept, because now people are moving after the COVID, especially into this more
nationalist.
Yes, more nationalist version of trade policy. So that's fascinating. Considering
which is
free trade used to be the whole thing with Republicans.
Well, actually, if you look at the history of the Republican Party, the very old Republican Party initially was protectionist because of it was a American
what are
worker
you talking
protect.
about?
I'm talking about like very old. I'm not
Okay.
talking like
Like, you
Benjamin
can't-
Harrison
no.
Republicans,
Like,
but
no, that
that's,
doesn't count.
I know what you're saying, but yes,
because free trade didn't exist in its current form.
yes, in this
until, like,
current
the
we,
90s.
we've been Republicans have generally been a free trade
Yes.
nation. I think it's free trade is.
And Democrats used to be into it too. I mean, Bill Clinton,
Bill
brought in NAFTA, and the Republicans were right on board with that.
I think free trade is one of those issues where it's very nuanced because it does have its faults and it does have its benefits.
Sure.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that because of free trade, we do have a very prosperous economic system, and this goes back to Adam Smith's
Yep.
writings in The Wealth of Nations.
Yep.
And the purpose of free trade is to make a specialization. Exactly. The things we make when we make a lot of things, or we used to make a lot of things in the United States, we don't
Still
anymore.
Make a lot of things.
But
we just make different things.
You make different things, exactly. So
more high end and value add. That's always been the point.
But yes, that's true. So I mean, free trade generally has a net benefit than a net, cost. But I mean, there's no denying that
the shift was, and this was actually where you got your Bernie Trump crossover, folks.
Yeah,
is because when Trump came in and was talking about, let's get a China and bring back manufacturing and all this other kind of stuff, that played into the disenfranchised working class of folks who lost their job, had to transition after NAFTA.
Yeah, this goes back even further to Ross Perot and the giant sucking sound. So that's really where it comes from. Is there it harms free trade there is a harm to American workers because jobs go overseas for certain jobs.
But the companies are like, sweet, because they make a lot of money.
Exactly.
So that had always been
it looks like, okay, corporations get wealthy, workers get screwed.
Right, workers get screwed,
Which used to be the Republican standpoint, but now we're caring about workers.
Because Democrats used to be the union folks. But as the union protections have been stripped as well, which was also our Republican platform, unions have been stripped of their powers. These folks who had been that working class of folks didn't have a political home anymore.
Yeah.
Because actually the unions used to whip votes for Democrats, right?
Makes sense.
But without those as well, these folks have just become politically independent, and Trump kind of seized on that. But it is the same position that your Bernie folks had. So that's why you did have some Bernie Trump crossover. And I think that was the guiding point. But anyway, there's only a few things. Yeah, there was the I don't know, the style and stuff. I just don't know what Trump is without style. So I don't know how
his entire thing is style. His entire thing is, Trump is Trump. It's like his own thing. And so there's no mimicking him. There's really no matching that.
Well, but here's the thing. So DeSantis is, of course, running as a Trump-styled candidate, but with a fascist instead of an oligarchic view. Meaning that he's willing to use the state instead of empower business entities, right? And you can see that differentiation.
I wouldn't use the term fascist, but yes, I could see what you're saying in the sense of
authoritarian.
He is more comfortable with using government power than most Republicans should be comfortable with.
Well, he's consolidating government power. And that's
what I'm saying. We've talked about that before about his consolidation of government power. But again, there's also the fact of, the core aspect of Republican values is limited government, not overreaching the power of government. And he does, on occasion, do that when it comes to certain issues, whether it's education or some of these culture war issues. So
I don't know. Everything he's pretty much stuck more government in and consolidated own power in his own party, even behind it. And
so it's definitely something that
most people aren't that in tune with how
they aren't really
works.
No, of course, but it should be something that they should be aware of, especially if they're a limited government conservative. If they're thinking about I want someone who will reduce the size and reduce the power that government has over their lives, Ron DeSantis may not be their choice.
Yeah, that's not your guy. But anyway, I think that he's really there, to be honest, to be the kind of Trump.
What I think he is I think it's all of the donors, all of the fundraisers, all of these different people who want Trump out, but know that they can't replace him with someone who isn't Trump.
Here's
Yes.
my speculation.
Mm.
I think that DeSantis is there because he's betting on Trump getting arrested.
I think that's why a lot of people are there, actually, which I think is stupid because he could still run for president while in prison, and he would still have his supporters. So I'm like, why do you think it's mind-boggling why they think it's
I don't know.
they think that'll actually
I got
work.
nothing, guys. I don't know. I don't know.
Eugene Debs apparently ran for president in prison. Yeah, got like 13% of the vote. So don't think it can't happen. But I think that is what a lot of these people are betting on, is that somehow he goes to jail. But really what it is, it's not even that. So I think it was the Alvin Bragg's case. He has already told Trump and his team to make sure there's a certain keeps his dates open in the middle of March. They're going to be holding these trials during Super Tuesday, is essentially what it looks like.
It was January.
Or something like, no, it's going to, Super Tuesday's in March now.
No, I know, but I mean, I thought that he had told him to be available January 2024.
No, I could have sworn it was March.
I mean,
but anyway, the point, what I understood it is, it looks like they're trying to keep him busy during that period. So basically,
you're thinking that they're kind of sliding it in there.
Sliding it in there so that way now he can't.
Don't you think his lawyers, because they can pick the date. They could pick
I
the
think
day.
that of course they could fight it. Sure, of course.
And you can delay it or blah blah blah.
Oh, and he's a master at that. He's actually very good at that. But that's what I do think a lot of people.
So I do want to shout out. We have Cindy Schrader, who's a big fan of Big Mouth Media. Thanks for joining us here. She's definitely coming in hot with the Democrat side, and she thinks that Trump's going to get the sympathy vote if he's in jail.
Mm-hmm. But then she says, question is, can he discharge the duties of office while behind bars? This will create the constitutional question of, can a president pardon himself? Because he could very easily, get a furlough from jail to put his hand on the Bible, get inaugurated, and then he could, in theory, pardon himself. So
wow, that would be fascinating.
It would be very fascinating.
And the end of our democracy. But
it would be, yes. Constitutional crisis, for sure.
Another one.
Yeah. So many of these, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, I really, I'm going to be honest. I don't think he wins a general election. The fact of the matter is, Republicans really need to understand this. Trump is not popular nationally. He's popular with our base, but he's not popular nationally. And we have more, all of millennials and Gen Z are going to be voting 40 to 50% of the vote now is going to be millennials and Gen Z. And they don't like Trump. Right. So we need someone who appeal to these younger voters. The baby boomer vote, the older generation vote, they're not going to matter anymore. I mean, the first 2016, he lost by 3 million votes. Second, he lost by 6 million votes. He's probably going to lose by upwards of 10 million votes next time. Okay? He is not, if we're wanting to win back the White House, I don't think he's the best choice. Who is, I won't tell you because I don't know yet. But I will say, I didn't want to say real quick, because one of the reasons I brought up the roast and run, or the roast and ride, I don't even know, Joni Ernst's event, is they all got a chance to speak.
So this is the
Iowa. So
lead up to the Iowa
lead up to the Iowa caucuses.
Oh, sorry, Iowa caucuses, which was on my tongue, but I just.
Yep. So it was actually pretty cool. I will say the one who impressed me the most was Tim Scott.
God, I almost forgot about him.
Yeah, exactly. There's too many people in this race. Tim Scott has a very optimistic Reagan-esque message, in my opinion. He comes off very Morning in America with the touch of blackness. Like, this is my story. This is the story. The story of how my story can happen here. So he's playing on a lot of that. He's actually apparently going to be on The View tomorrow, which is interesting because The View was attacking him for him bringing up the race issues. So I'm going to be very interested. I'm going to be watching that tomorrow and see
fascinating
what happens there. I do want to watch that.
I can't believe people watch The View.
I know. I don't usually, but I will watch.
I know that The View really gets the right going.
They do for some reason. I don't know.
They get mad at Whoopi, and I don't know.
It's
but
Whoopi,
who watches these things? I think
Whoopi,
it's older
Joy Behar, and Summer. There's another girl, Summer person. I keep thinking her name is Summer Redstone, but Summer Redstone's the former CEO of Viacom, so I know it's not Summer Redstone.
No,
but
and it wasn't like Meghan McCain was on there for a little
Meghan
bit.
McCain, and she got bullied off apparently.
Oh, who fucking who? Anyway,
you're the daughter of a war hero.
CNN.
Get some thick skin.
I don't know who's watching.
No one's really watching
That was like the
mainstream
Joy
news
Luck
media
from
anymore.
the
Even Fox
Boo, like, who are
News.
these people?
No one's
I think
even
it's just
watching.
like pumped in places. Like maybe it's just like all the like
doctor's
waiting rooms and stuff.
Or it's probably doctors' waiting rooms or
and retirees at home.
Retirees at home who don't know how to change. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Anyway,
put something on just to put it on.
So speaking of a touch of blackness,
oh god,
have you heard about Byron Donalds being considered for a VP pick for Trump?
I've heard some rumors about that, but I don't see how that's possible because again, you can't be from the same state. So Trump would have to move back to New York, which I guess
you can.
No, if the president and vice president are in the same state, that state the electoral votes cannot go to that candidate. It's in the Constitution. You should know this, Miss Political Science Professor. There is a rule within, I think it's the 11th or 12th Amendment. There is a rule where if you are in this is why Trump couldn't choose DeSantis if he stayed in Florida. Now he could move to New York and pull that off, but yes, if a candidate for president and a candidate for vice president are part of this residents of the same state.
Because I am not sure.
Let's just go on record here that I'm about to teach a political science professor at FGCU something new. So
I think that it is. I don't know if that matters anymore.
Well, all it would do is it would mean that Florida's electoral votes can't go to that ticket. So it would basically either have to go to Biden or to like a libertarian candidate.
I'm going to say electors cannot vote for a presidential and vice presidential candidate who both hail for the same state.
Yes. So, yeah, that's what there's a part in the Constitution. It's also why, like, for example, Dick Cheney in 2000 was actually living in Texas when he was chosen. So he moved back to Wyoming in order to avoid that. So that way George W. Bush can get Texas's electoral votes. Technically, he could run with Byron Donalds as his running mate. But the big name that's been talked about is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Which,
well, of course, she's been sucking up for a little bit.
Of course.
Anyway, the analysis is that's actually, there's workarounds on that.
Yes, they're the main workaround. Yeah, there's workarounds. And if anything, Trump can just move back.
He can just go back to New
homestead
York.
to
But
New York.
I don't think that's. It looks like that's not the interpretation of that. That was happened to be when they had a different process, I believe. But anyway.
It was around the time when they were choosing the president and vice president as they were. It was whoever was the most. The runner up, exactly.
So anyway, But Byron Donalds is apparently the top three. He's number 3.
Who are the other two?
Well, I think you're right. Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I don't know who's the number 2.
I think
Bono. He's number 2. Sorry,
Carrie
that's like
Lake,
an old South Park joke. Carrie Lake could be.
Well, Carrie Lake has already actually said no. So maybe because she still thinks she can be governor. Okay. Anyway, I
think her legal paths are exhausted.
Yeah, no, but still, that won't stop her. No, anyway, I think that would be an interesting ticket.
I'm trying to think about what that means for us.
That's the same too. Well, first off,
I think that's why Madison Cawthorn has been moved here.
That's a good point. Well, first off, remember the new election law will allow him to run for vice president, which I don't even think he would have been affected anyway since he's a federal officer. So he wouldn't have had to resign.
He doesn't have to resign.
And he would, I think,
but he can't run for 2 things at the same time.
Okay, so he wouldn't be able to run for Congress again.
So he would basically have to opt out of that term and somebody else would run.
Oh my God. Yeah, okay, so that would basically...
So my thoughts are, if he gets picked for the VP pick and if Trump gets all the way through, then there's going to be another Republican. Or it can be, he may have to drop out and there might have to be a special election or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah, what Well, the presidential primary was around June, July, right? Or the
Mhm.
convention's June, July. So we would know before then.
Well,
So-
here's the rub. In the state of Florida, our qualification period is usually April to June, depending on the year. So he may have to make that decision before he knows if Trump has punched the ticket.
That's a good point. But I think he would
Which is
choose.
why I think Madison Cawthorn is here, because I think they're going to go boop, boop, boop.
But
Oh,
I don't
and Cindy said maybe Sarah
Huckabee Sanders, I can
Could
see
be.
that as well. But I think with
Anyway.
I don't think
I
Madison
think 19 is going to be fascinating.
I don't think Madison Cawthorn has a chance because he's a carpetbagger. I'm just going to say it. I mean, he's definitely
he is,
he is, and so he needs.
I don't understand why he's here then.
I think he is here to position himself for a future run, but
we elected Kurt Clausen, he just moved here.
That's true.
Dan Bongino thought he had a chance here.
That's a good point too.
He lost his ass. Though,
Oh no, he didn't.
Which I love, by the way. Every time I hear my dad listening to Dan Bongino, I'll be like, "Hey, he's a carpetbagger who got less than 12% of the vote in my district when he tried to carpetbag because he's such a piece of shit and he's not very good at politics, even though he's on the radio talking about politics all the time."
Mm.
Anyway,
yeah, definitely interesting
I
character.
digress.
I did get a chance to meet him during the campaign. Very, very interesting character for sure. Yeah, that would be what will probably happen. Was kind of what happened, I think, with Ray Rodriguez and Jonathan Martin.
You think they're going to do a little swappity swap?
Well, not even a swappity swap. What they're going to do is they will wait until the last minute and then they'll have their preferred person sign in.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering, whether or not they're going to do that, or maybe he'll drop out, or
I feel like Trump would make that decision by April or May before he would have to finalize signing.
Maybe.
And
I think that
because usually that's around they choose it is April or May.
Maybe, but I think that they have Madison Cawthorn here because they can appoint him.
They can't appoint.
They can appoint him. So actually, Byron.
No, they can't. No, they can't. Like there's no like provision where like a governor can appoint a congressman. Like there's not like an appointment.
Oh, it's not
a
like
special election.
That's right. It would just be vacated to a special election.
Yeah. So we would. So what would basically happen? And quite frankly, he's not gonna. He's not gonna resign. I think he's gonna still stay in the Congress. Not run. And you'll have maybe. Whoever would be well positioned to get in, Cawthorn is probably going to be one of them. Whoever Terry Miller chooses is going to be one of them. I think that if he's smart, it would be Brian Hammond, because Brian Hammond, who's a county commissioner down here, very young, almost Kennedy-esque.
Such a goober.
But maybe we need a goober
very
conservative.
Nice, he's like a goober.
Yes, but we need a nice goober.
I literally started to get into politics when he was elected because I couldn't believe that these were the people that were in charge.
Christine thinks Madison Cawthorn is going to run for something local. I don't.
I think Madison Cawthorn should roll his ass in here and tell us what he's doing.
He needs to come over here, Christine. And
come on over here.
And you should stop by too, Christine. I haven't seen you in a while. You should stop by over. Come over and visit us sometime. But I think he's too big for his britches, to his wheelchair britches to go local. I think that he would have to do something Congress.
They might put him in state though. He might take an appointment for state or county.
Well, there's no appointment position.
You can appoint to state positions in county.
But what position, I guess, would he be appointed?
He could appoint, Brian Hammond could run for Congress and they could appoint Madison Cawthorn.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes. Okay. Yep. I do think the show is my guilty pleasure.
That's good.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate it. I'll have to text her later. I think that Brian Hammond would be a good pick. I think he's young.
What about Alfie Oakes?
Alfie Oakes, I'm sure Alfie Oakes
reportedly gonna primary Byron anyway.
No, Alfie Oakes is running for supervisor of elections.
Oh, really?
Yes, you didn't hear this? Yeah, he's running for supervisor in Collier. So I don't think he'd run for Congress, but I think Collier County would have to put.
It's another Mike Flynn ticket. Mm-mm. So if he gets supervisor of election, you'll actually have a direct connection to Russia with a Florida supervisor of election. Won't that be fascinating?
That is, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I was been watching.
Call me Alfie.
I think that's something I do want to bring up just briefly because I've been watching these old recordings and documentaries, and one that had struck me from full frontal with Samantha Bee. I had posted it a while ago on my Facebook, but it was about how Russia was hacking into our voter registration office. This is back in 2015, 2016.
Yep.
And it made me laugh because, I mean, Mike Lindell is crazy. I will say that.
Yep.
I'm not going to say he's not a nut job, quite frankly, but this is the type of stuff he was talking about and warning about, and there's some legitimacy to at least that part. Maybe not like Venezuela and Hugo Chavez hacking him from the dead, but there is a real issue when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to some of these electric, computer voting machines.
But okay, so it was the voter rolls and various supervisors of elections office. It wasn't the voting machines, and actually the voting machines are not connected to the internet.
Okay,
I'm gonna clarify a few things there. And there was demonstrable in the state of Florida hacking into the voter registration systems by Russian operatives in Florida.
Yeah.
This is true. This happened. What we don't know is exactly which supervisors of elections were affected, because that was never made public. I was looking because I want to know if ours was, because actually something weird happened in my voter rolls during 2016 or prior to 2016.
So you're thinking.
So I wanted to know actually what had happened to me in 2016 was that I had actually, because I was an MPA prior to that, I had actually signed up to be a Democrat because I wanted to vote in the primary and I wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. And I had registered and I had it online and I saw that it was, there. I got the card that said I was a Democrat. And then I got another one a couple of weeks later that said I was no longer registered with a party. So I could not vote in the 2016 primary.
Whoa.
And I was like,
that does sound like
pretty weird.
It does seem like Lee County was hit. But this is a very real thing. And I do know at the 2020 election, I was in Broward County. Similar thing happened to me. I didn't become an independent, but I did switch to the Democratic Party because I wanted to vote for Debbie Wasserman Schultz's opponent. Jen Perelman is actually a good friend of mine. And I'm trying to actually see if we can do a crossover episode with her podcast.
I like Jen.
Jen's a very, and I've been on her podcast too as a populist Republican and had the chance to speak to her about those issues. So very good woman. So I'm very glad I got a chance to switch to vote for her. It actually prevented me from rejoining the Republican Executive Committee for a year. And I had to tell people, why aren't you joining the Republican Executive Committee? And when I told them I joined the Democrats to vote against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they understood. Because there is a universal hatred for Debbie. It's a bipartisan hatred. So
I just don't like corporate Democrats.
It is, and that's what I've always admired about Jen is, even though we have disagreements on her on policy, we both agree that we need our politicians, whether it's the Democratic or Republican Party, to be more pro-worker than pro-business. Me personally, I would what I would even say, there's a concept that dates back to Hamilton, actually, called the harmony of interests. And that's was the initial conservative position that I really think it needs to be again, which is that business and labor can, they're not antagonistic. Business needs workers and workers need businesses. It's a symbiotic relationship. And we need to have policies that are both pro-business and pro-worker. And I think that's possible. And I think that, that's really where our focus should be.
Right. And actually, that's what all of the management books tell us, too. It's like, how to create a conducive work environment, and all about retention and how much money you lose when you're constantly having to retain workers, and how you're actually better to have a well-paid, happy, content workforce than high rates of attrition. But some people still want to have low bottom line on that. But okay, so we kind of went through the presidential primary with the folks coming up. We did the debt ceiling. Is there another topic that you were looking at?
I did want to say, yes. So I still want to talk about the 2024 race, a couple of war things, quite frankly.
So got more. Okay,
there's so much
more.
I will say.
So much more.
Well, here's the thing. With Ron DeSantis, and I want to say both for Ron DeSantis and actually Nikki Haley during the roast and run, both of them are so scripted. Like, seriously, I thought Nikki Haley was reading off of a teleprompter, and there was no teleprompter. It was sad, and I really not like Nikki. I've been very impressed with her foreign policy skills, but it was depressing. It was very depressing. And Ron is just, I have seen him now in a few speeches in Iowa, South Carolina, his interview with Craig Gowdy, his Twitter spaces, and now this. He is saying the exact same thing each time. It is ridiculously repetitive, and it's not a good look.
That's what they do.
And I do know, like, and I know you know this too. You know, when you're running for office, you do tend to repeat the same stuff.
We have to, because you don't know who's going to hit.
Yeah, exactly. But you also want to have a little bit of variety.
You got to have a little bit of like pizzazz. You got to feel comfortable.
You can't.
Well,
yeah.
You know.
And so
apparently, Casey DeSantis is behind the strings there, pulling the strings.
Of course. Well, she's the one who's classy and graceful, and everyone actually likes.
Well, and she knows how to talk. She was on.
She doesn't sound like a machine.
But she is apparently pulling the strings behind the scenes. What I've heard, which I actually kind of was like, I thought she was just like a whopping, like a empty vase. I
no, I definitely never thought
she's like apparently the one that's like.
Casey's a smart cookie. I think it's a good partnership. I mean, I think she'll strengthen Ron for sure. I think it's definitely a very strong.
It was her campaign ad that put him over the edge too. I mean, really, like that one coming out, with how he was there for me when I had breast cancer, blah blah blah. That was like so powerful, and it really humanized Ron DeSantis, and it made. I think that is the reason that he won by.
I think I think it definitely had an effect, and I think Cindy's also right. I think she's giving a lot of Jackie Kennedy vibes. I think that's what she's kind of going for, which I think would be interesting. But I don't know if Ron DeSantis wants to be associated with a womanizer like John F. Kennedy. So
well, he's a womanizer too.
Allegedly,
apparently. Well, that's the reason that Casey's got the reins on. Apparently, he likes everybody, though. That's what I've heard.
There's been some allegations on that, but I haven't been able to verify. But I will say, like, one of the things that I saw, there was a story that was interesting where he was speaking in, I don't know if it was Iowa or Nevada, but he was it was Iowa, but they were talking about Nevada. So apparently Nevada is one of those states where they do allow ballot harvesting. And Ron was asked, are you going to do that? And he said, yes. He said, yes. And his quote was, I'm not going to fight with one hand tied behind my back, which I think is a fair argument. But if you're someone of principle, like this is something you keep railing as a bad thing and then you use it, what does that say about you?
Yeah. Well, so we'll cut the video in here. There's actually video where you see Ron DeSantis saying this to somebody on the campaign trail that he's going to do ballot harvesting. Yeah. Now, another thing to keep in mind here is that with the 2022 set of election laws, I'm sorry, it was 2021. Yeah. But ballot harvesting is now illegal all through Florida. It used to only be illegal in Miami, which was interesting. That's a local case, by the way, if you haven't heard about that. I'm not. Locally here in Fort Myers, we have a city councilwoman who has engaged in ballot harvesting in all of her elections.
And alleged bribery of voters as well. So this is definitely something that does happen down here, and people are like, oh, it doesn't happen. You don't want to call voter fraud, but it does.
This was definitely voter fraud. Now here's what's interesting. In 2018, when this Congress or the city councilwoman was first elected, there were people that raised concern and said, oh, look, she's going door to door to largely old folks, taking the ballot, filling out the ballot on their behalf, and then turning it in. And there was an investigation into it. And what had been found is that at the time, there was no law that affected Lee County and Fort Myers City that made that process illegal. Yeah. But now, and apparently she was allegedly doing it again in the 2022 city council race, but it had been illegal at that time. So that made a dear friend of mine, Chantel Rhodes, actually get activated in the election integrity movement because she was somebody who had been affected by ballot harvesting.
She was running against the candidate Carolyn Watson in this case, who did win. And she actually at the time came to me because no one else was reporting on the story. And so I was able to get 5 or 6 sources. They all came on the condition on anonymity because no one really wanted to talk publicly, which makes sense. But I got a variety of sources. One person saying they bribed him with $20 and school clothes. All of them had said that she took their ballot. And this was a very common theme, and I reported it about a week before the election. It was honestly too late, but Chantal,
it broke.
What had happened, it did break. And what's very important and what I found very interesting about Chantal is she very much became a sacrificial lamb in the Democratic Party. She was ostracized.
No. That's not true.
She made it to me. She made it sound like she was like you was like told that you can't be doing this because
no. Listen, Carolyn Watson is a Republican plant. She's not ours. She doesn't affiliate with it. She is a Democrat on paper. She never comes to Democratic events. She's not involved in any of the clubs or caucuses. She's never been involved in the DEC. She is actually supported by Bruce Strayhorn. Okay, she is not a Democrat. She's a dino.
She's like a Joe Manchin Democrat type of thing.
She's not even a Joe Manchin Democrat. She is 100% bought and sold by Republican power brokers here in Southwest Florida.
So that wasn't really the impression I got from Chantal at the time, but that would make I feel like Chantal ideologically was always more progressive Democrat and more fitting with the Democratic base, except on this one issue. But was also interesting though.
No. Let me be clear. I was the one that told her that it was ballot harvesting. She came to me first. And she said, this is going on. I said, that's ballot harvesting. It's illegal. And Anthony Thomas, who has now passed away, was the person who had brought that strategy for Carolyn Watson in 2018 and again in 2022. And it was unethical in 2018 and illegal in 2022. And I was the one that had told her that this was something that was really important and needed to be brought to the authorities' attention.
But yes, and I'm very glad you did because she needed to know that. But what I wanted to say is she developed a very good friendship with Michael Thompson, who's our local Republican Party chairman, and who we were actually talking about in the car, and his connections, I guess, to Michael Flynn, and just the concerns there. But it's the odd couple whenever I see the photos of those two because they're very much diametrically opposed. And actually, Michael Thompson. This was when he was running for chairman. He got hit on this.
Yeah, Brendan Leslie wrote a hit piece on him.
There was an article that came out that was like, oh, this is a lady who supports Black Lives Matter, and Michael Thompson is endorsing her. What does that mean about him? And but it didn't work because he still won. He's our chairman now by one vote, sure, but he's still our chairman. But it's these type of issues make strange bedfellows, and it just goes to show you that.
Well, my issue was she actually has a legitimate case of election fraud. That was the thing. It was like, this is legitimately election fraud. This is bad. This is illegal. I had said, this is what it's called. It's called ballot harvesting. Like, this is illegal, right? Yep. And I think that she was disheartened from it because you can't fight back. You
really can't. No.
If somebody's already gone in and taken their ballot, and they've been intimidated by it to do it, that you cannot come back from that. Essentially, you cannot win.
And these people, I will tell you, the people I spoke to were scared. Like there were a lot of people who really didn't want to speak out. Had one person who tried to retract. Like these people were very concerned about retaliation within their community. So it's very much a coercive tactic.
Yep.
It's very
and it is wrong and it is illegal.
It reminds me of like mafia stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But let's also be clear. Anthony Thomas is a Republican operative and has been a Republican operative in the Black community for the vast majority of his life. So this had nothing to do with Democrats. It was wholly non-democratic and it was something that we were very concerned about. Now, I think Chantal has her own understanding and feeling about how she feels about people around the community, and that's her prerogative. But I want to be clear when we're talking about this had nothing to do with actual Democrats.
Well, from my understanding, Tara Lynn is at least a registered Democrat, but I have heard that that she doesn't show up to meetings, that she's not like
She's
active.
never even been involved at all.
What I mean, like,
Ever.
and I will say this, like, you don't see a lot of like Republican like legislators and Republican officials at REC meetings as well, even before, this new leadership. The only ones you'd really see.
She was not funded by Democrats. She was not cultivated by Democrats. She was not ever involved in Democratic politics, period.
We get some Republicans like that too.
I mean, and that's fine, but I want to say she is connected to Republicans.
Again, I don't know for sure, but that's
her
good.
sign was in front of Bruce Strayhorn's office, and you can actually look at her
and for those
campaign filings. She received money from Bruce Strayhorn.
And so, for those who don't know who Bruce Strayhorn is, I don't know if it's the current or former husband of Lisbeth.
Of Lisbeth Benequisto.
So, by the way, this is very interesting. Bruce Strayhorn is considered in Republican circles more of a Democrat, and the reason why Lisbeth Benequisto, we used to believe that she was funded by the Democrats, is because
Lisbeth Benequisto had been a Democrat, and then she switched to a Republican. She voted straight Republican. He's a Republican kingmaker and has been. He's partners with Jenna.
No, of course.
This is like, he is a Republican, and I don't, whatever y'all think about him, I don't know, but
I find it interesting because the Republicans I speak to see him as a Democrat, and that's the reason why they think a lot of these state representatives like Jenna Persons, even though she's also been one of the most conservative representatives out there, she's the reason why you have both abortion bans out there from her. And yet there are Republicans down here who want to primary her and other representatives. Like, are they not conservative enough for you?
Well, I told you my opinion on that. I think it's because you have leadership in the Republican Party here in Lee County that has been funded by Mike Flynn. Mike Flynn is a known Russian operative. He's brought other known Russian operatives in here, has been a person who has received and distributed Russian funds. And those are the people who are leading our Republican Party here. And unwittingly or not, I think that they are then doing the bidding of election influence here in the region, and part of that influence is chaos, and it affects Democrats. There are people, and this is actually something you can look up in the national intelligence reports about how Russia has been targeting political parties and political candidates for malign influence campaigns, and they try to make them question what they're doing, make them believe conspiracy theories, whatever. And that has happened here in Lee County. It is happening here in Lee County. I think people really need to become aware of this. And my belief is, if you are getting people in the Lee County Republican Party that are telling you to primary Republicans who are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, because they're part of the establishment, this is actually a disruption campaign for our politics.
I don't know anything in particular.
I have a whole thread
but I'm
on
sure
it.
you. Yeah, yes, I've seen some of your posts on it, and I would like to see a
They're
little
all
bit more.
cited and sourced.
Regardless, I haven't read any of that, so I'm not going to comment on its validity.
Actually, it surrounds around election integrity, because the Russian operative that Mike Flynn has brought, that Mike Thompson and Madison Cawthorn both have been seeing here, is with one fellow. I have to look up his name, but he was the Pence card guy.
Oh yes, okay, I did see your post. Yes, okay.
Let me pull up his name real quick.
The Pence card guy.
So they were basically
this is the people. Yeah, Mike Flynn. What I do know is that Mike Flynn and his organization, they were the people who are very big.
Yvonne Raiklin is his name.
These are the people who really wanted Mike Pence to deny the Electoral College vote, which he did not have the constitutional authority to do. The
creation of this, the Pence card, was written by Yvonne Raiklin, who is also he's a former Army Green Beret, intelligence, speaks both Russian and English, totally bilingual in his household. You can find all this stuff on the internet. By the way, he actually had tried to crowdfund a documentary on Vladimir Putin in 2015. He has very strong continued ties with the Russian oligarchs, and he had written the Pence card, then gave it to the Trump team, I believe via the professor John Eastman, and get it to Trump. But it was authored by somebody who's a foreign asset. Okay, so the whole election thing, the whole election integrity scene,
as
being funneled and continuously, right? And it was just used by Trump as a way to perpetuate himself. But continue to this day, it's happening. These folks are right here in Southwest Florida.
We definitely, I will say that I'm 100% against Russian election operations in the United States. Period.
I'm against like any foreign influence in our election.
Yeah, period.
I'll go on record and say that.
Actually, yes, I will agree with you on that. No foreign influence on our election, regardless of the country.
Yeah,
including Russia and especially
Russia, China.
I will also say
Cuba, whatever.
It is stupid to primary the Republican legislators here in Lee County. I will publicly endorse all of them now. I think they've done a very good job.
I think they're shit because they're Republican.
Oh, of course, yes. But I think if you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, they've worked very, very hard for you.
Yes.
And they've gotten a lot of good things done for the things that we stand for.
They've 100% pushed the conservative agenda.
Yes, exactly.
And actually, they had no choice to push the Ron DeSantis agenda because otherwise they didn't get to do anything.
That's a good point as well. That's a discussion I know we've had about how even at the legislature there's no longer any independence there. But again,
but the 6-week abortion ban was sponsored by Jenna, supported by Ron DeSantis, signed, passed and signed immediately too. By the way, Ron DeSantis doesn't sign all the bills immediately. He's actually still signing bills currently that have already passed.
Yeah. So again, I think it's stupid, and I think I can agree in the sense that it would be disruptive and unnecessary, especially if the Republican Party itself, the Republican Party of Lee County, is seen as running those primary opponents. Now, I'm hoping that this is just rumor and conjecture and that no one's stupid enough to do this and that the party itself is not going to support it, because we have been speaking. I'm part of the bylaws committee and the Republican executive committee, and this is one of the issues that we've been discussing is prohibiting endorsements from the party, because that was one of the big issues last year, which is why this ticket ran, is because the initial leadership wanted to endorse certain school board candidates. And Christine, who is probably still watching, she was one of the candidates running for school board who most likely wasn't going to get that endorsement because it was really supposedly being run in the background by Terry Miller and his group of people. Whether or not that's true or not, they deny it, but it basically seemed that way, that it was kind of being organized to support one chosen group of people. And that was one of the reasons this group ran for this seat. And so if they're going to stand on that principle, we're going to put that into the bylaws and the rules, and we won't actually, Christine's like #facts, she gets it. Yeah, exactly. So we need to not endorse, period. And this is something.
Well, Democrats already have that rule. They do not, if there's a primary, we don't endorse.
Yeah.
But I saw there were people like Ron DeSantis was endorsing people in nonpartisan races.
He was endorsing people in the school board races. Yes. Yeah. He was putting in his ticket. So there's sort of that loyalty and obligation. I will say though, Michael Thompson has made it very clear that he is pro-Trump, and to the extent that he's anti-DeSantis, I would say. So it definitely does feel like this party is very overtly pro-Trump in its leadership. That is what it is. But I think that's
so. I want to say that I think that, and that old stuff like that is definitely bylaw shit that y'all got to figure out. But what I will say is I am definitely concerned about malign influence on politicians and political parties here. I stand firmly against any foreign influence. I actually, to a certain extent, and this is what I was saying to folks outside the Trump rallies, I feel bad that people are being manipulated into thinking certain things without even necessarily realizing that there's a campaign to influence them, right? And so I really hope that folks start to kind of look into this, see what's really going on, because I would love to get back to the point where we're openly debating different topics, different folks, and there isn't this, third wheel, fifth wheel, whatever, coming in and messing things up. So we can just have different opinions in different parties. But when we're actually being influenced by moneyed operations that are outside of us as Americans,
it's foreign.
I'm super concerned.
And it could, and quite frankly, this is, flip this on the other side. We've been hearing a lot about possible Chinese influence in terms of whether funding for the universities or with
Been
different
happening.
policies. Yeah, the point is that
Well, there's
for-
Russian influence. There's
Russian, Chinese-
actually Len Blavatnik is a huge philanthropist who has apparently been funneling money directly from Vladimir Putin to various universities, to Cambridge, presidential candidates, to Ron DeSantis, to the DCCC. So he's actually on both sides of the aisle too. So this is like a beyond partisan kind of issue.
It is, and I 100% agree. I think that this goes back to even some of the stuff our founding fathers talked about, that they really wanted to make sure foreign influence wasn't involved in our own domestic activities. There is that understanding, and it's a major part of our American tradition to ensure that, and not just even American tradition, it's to be expected that, only the people in your own country could affect your own government.
Right.
We shouldn't be our government should not have any form of influence from any foreign entity whatsoever, because it needs to represent Americans and the American people, not the Russian people, not the Russian president, not the Chinese.
And they just want their goal, by the way, is disruption. So it's not even
Russia's
is disruption. They want to see democracy fail. They want to see America fail. And if they have to get Democrats to do it, they get Republicans, or they get to mix everything. They don't care.
They just want to make us look bad. And China wants that too. Let's be clear, because by making us look bad, it looks good. Chinese communism and authoritarianism.
Well, it's all about holding up dictators and authoritarian powers. If democracy looks good, then people are going to start demanding it. So that's happened. But one thing I did want to say too is now I've totally forgot. Actually, because I started thinking about, so the Chinese influence actually had been there was the case, and I don't even know what happened.
Bill Clinton, I think it was.
No, it was Obama. It was somebody was funneling Chinese money through one of the members of the Fugees, a Haitian national, and he just went on trial. I don't know what's going on with the trial. Maybe I'll look into it.
I do know that there's been Chinese influence stories.
But Chinese is like, listen, China and Russia are constantly hacking our systems, constantly trying to break in on it. They do slightly different things, but I think that we need to be aware of that. Both sides of the aisle need to be aware of that, and I think that we need to really start to think about how we can protect ourselves and our democracy.
The only thing I would add to this is, just because we do have to be mindful of foreign influence, but we also have to be mindful that we don't use the foreign influence tag to deny things that are actual problems. Like we did have that situation with the Hunter Biden laptop where everyone thought that was foreign influence, but there was some level of truth or validity to that. So it's
I don't know. I'm not going to give you the Hunter Biden.
You're not going to give me the Hunter Biden?
Like that is actually a Russian plant story. I'll show you the data on it. But anyway, what I was going to say, I remember Lev Parnas. If you want to see about crazy shit, Lev Parnas has actually been to prison for funneling Russian money into Republican politics.
I do know who Lev Parnas is.
And listen, and his son, Aaron Parnas, is very active with the Democrats. And when he came in and asked me if he could help me, I said, no, thanks. But, just better safe than sorry on that. But like Lev Parnas is singing about all the shit he's done for Ron DeSantis. So if you are not on the Ron DeSantis train, start listening to what Lev Parnas has to say. If you want to hear to the level of Ron DeSantis that he will go to smear his candidates, you should listen to the misinformational episode with Rebecca Jones that we did a couple weeks ago, where Rebecca had a conversation with Lev Parnas and what that whole Miami incident with Andrew Gillum.
You got her to get Lev Parnas? That's impressive.
Andrew, the whole Miami Andrew Gillum thing was Lev Parnas and Ron DeSantis. So listen, okay? And how he's acting, and he had already been convicted of bringing money in from Russia. So I think that we really gotta think about this. So.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end it.
Let's think about that. All right. So thank you so much for joining us here for a Democrat and Republican walk into a bar.
Good to be back.
Yes.
Good to be back.
I'm your Democrat host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
And I am your Republican host, Sean Hartman.
And thank you for hosting us here, Ollie's Pubs and records and beer. Please check out all that we have to offer at bigmouthmediafl.com. If you enjoy the show, please help support us $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, or you can get everything from Big Mouth Media for $19.99 a month. Help keep independent journalism alive. And we will see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.